Funding support for Presente is provided by Joseph and Elizabeth Walder Charitable Fund and generous Chicagoans like you.
Welcome to Presente, where we speak to leaders who are showing up for our community by actively fostering grassroots solutions to challenging social problems. I'm Francia Garcia Hernandez, your host. The Puerto Rican Cultural Center in Humboldt Park was founded in 1972 by community members who came together to address their needs and have their voices heard. We visited the National Museums of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture in Barrio Boriken to learn how they empower neighbors. Later, community organizers and elected officials join an inspiring conversation about community organizing, political participation, and why your vote is your voice. We begin in your neighborhood. I visited the Puerto Rican Cultural Center in Puerto Rico town, recently renamed as Barrio Boriken. This name change is one of many ways in which this nonprofit community institution is advocating for the Puerto Rican diaspora in Chicago. Xiomara Rodriguez, we're here at the National Museum of Puerto Rican Cultures and Art. It's under the umbrella of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, where you work as head of digital media. I know we're here right by Paseo Boricua, which many people know as Puerto Rico town, but this year you had an important designation from the state of Illinois to change the name to Barrio Boriken. So why is this designation so important?
Yeah, so Barrio Boriken is really, really important. This program, the state designated cultural district program, which was made possible by Governor Pritzker, is a huge win. It was started homegrown, an initiative that came out of the Puerto Rican agenda with community organizers who were really looking at the issue of gentrification and trying to come up with a way that we could preserve our community and honor the contributions of the Puerto Rican community here in Chicago.
And it ties really well with the mission of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center of self-determination and self-reliance. Tell us a little bit more about that and why that is important to the Puerto Rican community in Chicago, but also to all communities in Chicago.
Yeah, the idea of being self-determined, being self-actualized, and being self-reliant while under colonial rule is something that's really, really central to the struggle of Puerto Ricans throughout history. And so being a community, a diaspora community in Chicago of Puerto Ricans who are facing a lot of the same issues that Puerto Ricans on the island are facing under US colonialism, we had to make it central to our mission to ground us in the history of where we come from. And the way that we go about our self-determination, self-actualization, self-reliance is through the creation of parallel institutions. So the idea was we see that a lot of these institutions and these systems in the United States do not work for us. And they're not built for Puerto Ricans, they're not built for minorities, they're not built for people of color. And so we're gonna build our own.
Right, and that leads to a conversation about all the work that the Puerto Rican Cultural Center is doing and has been doing for decades. Tell us a little bit more about some of these programs and what they have achieved for Puerto Ricans here in Chicago.
Yeah, our first program of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center was our Pedro Albizu Campos High School. And so this high school was created in the 70s, and it was because they saw that Puerto Ricans had a very high dropout rate. And a lot of it was because the curriculum didn't reflect their identity. They didn't see themselves in the school setting. And so they said, we need to create an alternative high school. And they created the Pedro Albizu Campos High School. Another example is in 1988, we created the first Latino-focused initiative on HIV prevention. Because again, we saw that the rates of HIV in the Puerto Rican community were extremely high. And so they created Vida Sida, and at the time it was very taboo. And now I think we celebrated the 35th year 2 years ago, and it has helped so many people. And that was the goal of Vida Sida. They understood that if we keep things taboo and we don't talk about these issues in our community, then we can't ever find the solutions. So that just gives you an example of the way we think about creating our programs, is really looking at the needs and saying, how do we address this within our community in a way that's culturally relevant, in a way that speaks to our culture and what our needs are.
What do you think is the next challenge that the Puerto Rican community needs to face? What are some of the most pressing challenges that you're seeing today? And as a member of the community that you hope the Puerto Rican Cultural Center can help?
Yeah. One of our biggest issues that we have been facing recently, and I think it's common throughout the Puerto Rican diaspora and on the island, is the issue of gentrification and displacement. In the city of Chicago, Puerto Ricans have been pushed out of almost every single neighborhood they've been in. And Humboldt Park, we have been desperately trying to hold on to this pedacito de patria that we call our little piece of homeland. The island of Puerto Rico is experiencing hyper gentrification. And so our next step is trying to connect those struggles, because we're stronger together. I think that the Puerto Rican Cultural Center stands as an example for other communities for what it looks like to be in community and be able to resist and be able to create change. And it starts from little kids like me who grew up and were shaped by the murals that you see on Division Street on Paseo Boricua, who was shaped by the celebrations every year and grew up surrounded by not only cultural affirmations, but celebrations of my culture and identity, which created a very confident and grounded person. But it starts from little kids like that and goes to our high schoolers, goes to our young activists who work with us now, who do door knocking, who do get out the vote work, who are part of our youth councils, who lead our protests and our marches, who work in this museum and part of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, and goes on to our community leaders and the leaders of our organizations like the Puerto Rican Agenda. There's so many different levels. And even our artists, our cultural producers, there's so many different parts of creating this community of resistance, and I am so grateful to be a part of it and to be able to offer this example to the rest of the world and minority communities, Latino communities, to say that there's really opportunities if we work together and look at where we see need around us within our neighbors and work together to address that.
Latinos have the power to implement solutions to the most pressing challenges in their communities. When Latinos come together to ideate solutions rooted in our history and culture, not only can we begin to solve widespread issues, but we empower future generations. The Puerto Rican Cultural Center experience shows, despite challenges, it is possible to get public funding and support to implement programs designed and led by community members. As community organizers did in the 70s to address disparities in education and combat the displacement of the Puerto Rican community in Chicago, every Latino has power and a responsibility to participate and shape our collective future. Iris Martinez, Clerk of the Cook County Circuit Court, and Juan Calderon, Chief Operating Officer of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, discuss how Latinos shape their communities by organizing, voting, and running for office next on Presente.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. On the new episode of Behind the Confident Smile, I'll be conversing with Delisa Walker about her journey with perimenopause.
I see that chick, Perry, trying to break up my marriage.
Join the conversation Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
You're watching Presente, where we speak with leaders who lift our communities by nurturing solutions to challenges. Today's program is focusing on community power. We talked to longtime Humboldt Park resident and Director of Digital Media for the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, Xiomara Rodriguez, about the ways community organizers have fought for the Puerto Rican diaspora. Despite facing systemic challenges like disinvestment, gentrification, and racism, community organizers led to the creation of schools like the Dr. Pedro Albizu Campus High School that offer culturally relevant education, public health programs like Vida Sida that address the needs of the Latino LGBTQ+ community, and institutions like the National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture to preserve, celebrate, and share Puerto Rican culture and history. Clerk of the Cook County Circuit Court, Iris Martinez, and Juan Calderon, Chief Operating Officer at the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, will join us now to discuss how they have used their experience, skills, and knowledge to bring solutions to our communities and empower other Latinos. Clerk Martinez, Juan Calderon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. So we are on the eve of a historic presidential election where Latinos have significant power. We have approximately 36 million Latinos eligible to vote nationwide, according to data by the Pew Center. But we have seen in the past some challenges to Latino participation, to getting to the polls. In the 2020 election, 61% of Latinos got to the polls. That's 10% lower than other groups. Mm-hmm. So we have to, talk about the importance of participating, engaging locally, nationally, at all levels of government. So I want to talk a little bit more about how Latinos like you have taken a stance for the Latino community throughout your careers. Clerk Martinez, you're a Trailblazer Latina. You were elected, the first Latina elected to the Illinois Senate. You've done a lot of work through decades of your career. So tell me a little bit about what first inspired you to run for office.
Well, as someone that was born and raised in Humboldt Park, challenges, being, raised in the neighborhood and then raising my daughter as a single mom in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Same challenges I think that still exist today: affordable daycare, affordable housing, a safe community to bring up your children, policies that affect us, in different ways that has had a negative effect on us. More jobs, more training. There's so many things that I think are the challenges that we've had, especially in Humboldt Park, even though we have some great organizations that are really connecting with people out there and helping us. When I was a senator down in Springfield to, create policies, and actually even work with other non-Latinos and trying to get them to understand the challenges that we have and how we all deserve equal piece of the pie when it comes to resources, when it comes to, and that for me was, as a single parent that I was, a single mom, all those challenges was what led me to go out there and be that voice, because I lived it. I was challenged in so many areas about bringing up my daughter in the neighborhood. Right. And to me, that was the most important part of who I am today, and always continue to mentor out there to make sure that the generations, that come after me continue to fight these challenges that we still have and that we're still fighting for a piece of the pie. And so again, that is something that what motivated me to run was the challenges and sharing them with the people door to door, and know that they had the same challenges I had. I wasn't alone on this. And that really made me go to the state senate, over to the clerk's office, and really do more to bring our people the resources that they need, in order to survive and be part of the, of what we need to do to continue to uplift our community.
Right. And Juan, you share similar experiences. You're not in office, but from your standpoint, you have brought your experience, you understand the community, you understand the challenges, and you've implemented solutions like programs for the LGBTQ+ community that address their needs, their public health needs, their support services, housing. So even though you did not run for office, you saw challenges and you decided to rise to the occasion and bring solutions. Tell us a little bit more about that work.
Well, I can say is over my career, I started very young. I'm born and raised in Chicago with a background of family of migrants that migrated to this city in the 80s from both Puerto Rico and from Mexico. And I think it was, me growing up in a space where you didn't see investment, local investment, where you didn't see access to healthcare, where you saw the insecurity of housing and you saw food insecurity, that motivated me to find that internal strength to ultimately advocate and use the voice that I have to really push for the Puerto Rican society that has settled here in Chicago, right? And for us, it was, how do we get to stay in a community that we were raised so that our families can be able to continue to live in these communities, in this urban setting, in Humboldt Park, in Logan Square, that's specifically struggling with gentrification and displacement.
Right.
But through that aspect, I think that it empowered, because we were able to designate, the governor signed into law this year, Puerto Rico Town, which is a main street. Think of Main Street America. That's what we've developed within the concept of culture, because we are human beings. We value our identity. We value everything that we do is involved in the culture, is a part of us, and identity. And so through that aspect, we created these welcoming markers, as I was sharing, and Puerto Rico Town was designated by the governor this year. Little Village was designated for the Mexican community. You have areas like Bronzeville that was designated for the African American community. You have Rogers Park that was also designated for that demographic. And then you had South Shore. There were 7 communities that also included Chinatown that were designated cultural districts through the policy efforts that were driven by our policy team, by the leadership of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center.
Right, and it's so important in this conversation to talk about education and knowing and informing our communities so that they can also make informed decisions and be empowered. So, Clerk Martinez, tell us about some of the challenges that Latina women face that maybe we have not talked about, or many Latino members don't know women like you have faced, and how, as we have seen, there are community organizers who are stepping up and trying to resolve these challenges.
I think that Latina women, we're always afraid of taking a risk, especially if we're moms, if we're homemakers, if we have a profession where the family depends on you. I think in getting into politics is something first of all, you have to have the skin for it. I mean, I always say you have to have thick skin, because if not, it is rough, to run in, and trying to raise money. It's not easy for someone to pick up a phone, a woman to pick up the phone and ask for money for herself on what she's trying to do. I face those challenges, you know what I mean? And I used to always put it out there. How is it that a man can pick up the phone and call for fundraising? I can call the same person. He'll get $1,000. I only get $500, and we're both the same. And we're both senators. We're both, So those are the challenges that I always feel like, why is it that we have to be treated differently? And so as women, I'm always encouraging more women. When I first got to the Senate, I was the very first Latina ever, and that was back in 2003. Miguel del Valle was the very first Latino senator, male. It took 20 years after he got elected to get the first Latina woman elected. To know that the progress has been made, that now we have 4 or 5 Latinas in the state Senate when I left. To know that I was, the first Latina to actually win the clerk race, and we have to support each other. We women have to continue, because they just don't pick us and say, here, I want you to run for this. You know what I mean? It's not as simple. You have to really get yourself out there. And then I think that some of the challenges that we sometimes face as women is that if we're not with the right, or, the group that's the one that's, electing, and, sometimes there's challenges there, because, if I say she's qualified, no, she's not qualified. They think that she's not. I think she's qualified, because I've seen the women. I've known the women. So it's always hard, the challenges that I have in trying to convince that we have to bring more women to the forefront, more Latina women, and teach them how to run, teach them how to raise money, teach them how to, go out there and get the vote. I mean, there's a lot of challenges because I had nobody to teach me. They said, Iris, run for this. Miguel came, you should be the first Latino to do this. We have to break that glass ceiling. And I was like, okay, you know, and but what did I do? I had to, every woman that I ran into, be part of my committee. And sure enough, I had a group of women, you know, that surrounded me and says, we're going to help you. And they were there from day one to get me elected. They gave me the first $100 so I can open up my campaign office. So, you know, we have to be much more in solidarity, work together with other Latina women so we can continue to, you know, to just grow the numbers of us, you know, to know that we only have, you know, here we are 33% of, you know, of the population here, but we might only have 3 or 4 Latinas in the state Senate, and we should be having more.
Juan, as a community member who has fought for the Puerto Rican community and for the Latino community, what would you say to other Latinos to get empowered and to get out and participate, whether they decide to run for office in the future or whether they decide to do something in their neighborhoods? What would your advice be?
I think that my advice to the Latino voter is that I think it's important for us to be on the table and tackle issues that are important and relevant to us. And in order to do so, we have to vote. We have to activate our families to go out and vote and we have to connect with those that are that have the access to power at this point, that are making those decisions to be able to change. If we don't like the values that they currently have or the platform that they currently have, to be able to change it. In order to do that, we have to organize, and we have to build coalition. We are here because we need access to jobs, access to be able to provide to our families. And in order to do that, we need to empower our elected officials. We need to empower the communities that we live on by having a strong participation. Even though you stop learning about civic education in high school, right? Once you pass the Constitution test, it's important for us to educate our the next generations on the importance of a vote. And for me, that is very, very important, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to change the platform to talk about possibilities in this country.
Right. And what I'm hearing from both of you is the importance of getting out, understanding the challenges that our communities face, but also knowing that there are solutions, there are people who are working there, and it's time to build collaboration. It's time to work together, support each other as Latinos, as Latina women, and continue to drive solutions and bring those home so that our communities can be uplifted and thrive. It starts with voting, but there's so much more to it.
Right.
There's education, there's the component of knowing your community, understanding the challenges, and really, really getting to talk to people. So Clerk Martinez, I'll ask you this. Why is it important for people in office, people like you, to continue to work with community organizers, and how can they reach you and any other elected officials that represent them to really understand their challenges?
I think that one of the things that's important is that people need to get involved in the local politics so they can understand nationally what's going on. When you elect someone, like say an alderman, a commissioner, you're electing somebody locally, that person is empowered. The people there have empowered. But when you look at our numbers, you know, it's sad to say that our people, our Latinos, are not coming out to vote the way they should. Like you said, there was 61% was the last election, 10% less than what other organizations, other ethnicities out there are doing. We have got to educate our people about the value and how powerful we as a community can become when we become those voters that are out there at 70, 75%, 80% voting. Then people start taking notice. The Latinos, finally that giant has woken up. And I think that's what we still need. I think the power of the vote is how we are going to empower our communities, because we are the sleeping giant. We are the community that is, just growing in population more than any other out there, but we are still, lag behind when it comes to the political. And I think this is where many of us leaders, community organizations, we have to continue to work and making sure that we're educating our people to take that, that vote. You have all opportunities. You have almost 2 weeks, almost a month. You can vote by mail, you can vote, but the vote is so important. That's the only way it's going to empower the leaders to say to the national, here we are 33% of the population. We demand we demand more because we are the fastest growing, but we need to exercise our vote in order for us to carry that and say, we're not playing around. We are serious about our needs. We're serious about our piece of the pie, our commitment, what we need, the money that we need in our communities to continue to grow, like you said, the agriculture, to educate the people about the things that are really happening, not only here, but nationally, and that we have to participate. That's the only way we're going to be able to have even a stronger voice when it comes to, what's happening on a national level, so we can be really heard, understood, and actually acted on.
Right. So on that note, we're running out of time, but I think we have very powerful messages for our viewers. We have the power, we have the voice, we're Presente, we're here, and it's time to get out the word, get out to vote, get out to the polls, get educated, and get empowered. So thank you so much for such an informative conversation, inspirational conversation, and it's been an honor having you here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm Ricky Watson, and I'm inviting you to join me for the next episode of Critical Conversations, when we focus on navigating through pieces of your story to find peace, hope, and joy. How can failure be a stepping stone to success? How do I process grief the right way? Join the conversation on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Latinos have the power to organize, participate in local government, and bring solutions to some of the most pressing systemic challenges in our communities. As organizers from the Puerto Rican Cultural Center have shown us, there is a role for everyone, from fighting gentrification to improving education and health services, uplifting our culture, organizing neighbors, or running for office. This November, 36 million Latinos nationwide can vote and make their voices heard. That is about 15% of all eligible voters. Polls show that both parties have struggled to earn Latinos' trust. Only 5 in 10 Latino voters think the Democratic Party cares about people like them, compared to 4 in 10 Latino voters who think the same about the Republican Party, according to a July 2024 poll by the Pew Research Center. Yet, Latino power goes beyond national elections. We have the power to implement local solutions, advocate for our community, and support local elected officials who understand the challenges of the Latino community. At the eve of a historic presidential election, let's not forget the common ground between elected officials, organizers, and neighbors like you and I is staying informed, showing up at the polls, and actively participating with our communities to implement solutions that transcend generations. What do you think? We want to know. Contact us via Instagram because you are more than just our audience, you are our contributors. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Presente. I'm Francia Garcia Hernandez.